recording of our time together. But we will go ahead and get started with some questions. So it would be great. First off, let me go ahead and welcome our panelists today. Thank you so much for being willing to spend your time with us and provide this information to our students and alumni. So it would be awesome if our panelists would be interested in going ahead and introducing yourself, talking a little bit about your work and what it is that you do. So Kim, would you like to go ahead and go first?
Sure. Thank you, Lynn. My name is Kimberly Murga. I'm the Director of Forensic Lab Services for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We currently have about 86 folks that work in the lab. We are a full-service laboratory, and we offer DNA, firearms examinations, toxicology, seized drugs, and latent prints. So we do serve all of Southern Nevada, as well as the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And we do have a number of graduates from UNLV that do come and work with us. So I think later on in this session, we will discuss how to apply and submit interest for future positions.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Charlie, can you go ahead and go next?
Yeah, so hey guys, my name is Charlie Wang, and I am the local field sales engineer. I'm based out of here. My role as a field sales engineer it does have the word sales in it, but there's a lot of technical aspects about it. So I guess long story short is I'm helping whoever it may be. It could be a lab, it could be a government, military facility, it could be environmental, it could be food producers. My goal is to help them find match our technology towards whatever application they're looking on. So it's a combined role of balancing technical aspects with a lot of I would say more of the personable intangibles. And I guess we'll get into that a little bit later, right? So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And last but certainly not least, Jay, go ahead and introduce yourself as well. Hey, Jay, your microphone is muted. You're good. There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I wanted to point out first that I'm an alumni of UNLV, and I'm proudly wearing my colors today. So I'm based in Reno, Nevada, and I got my master's degree from UNLV. And my role is a chief hydrologist for Kinross. Kinross is a large gold mining company. We have about 7,000 employees worldwide. We got mines. I'm responsible for our two big mines here in Nevada. Nevada is the gold mining capital of the world, obviously. And we also have mines in Russia, South America, Alaska, Africa. And the hub of our exploration activities is based here in Reno. And I'm a civil engineer by academic training and my experience. My focus is groundwater hydrology, and I'll talk more about that later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the introductions. We are really excited to have all three of you here. So we will go ahead and move into our first round of questions. As the moderator, I'll go ahead and call on you. I'll try to make it fair as far as who goes first, second, third, etc. But our first section of questions are focused around education and training. So we will start with Charlie for this round. But the two questions are, what type of education or training did you need to get into your position? And if you have a degree, is it relevant to your current work? So take it away, Charlie.
I almost feel like I'm getting graded on this. Okay, so my position is field sales engineering. So you kind of notice that you have the word sales and the word engineering in there. And it's not necessarily that I needed it, but I'll just go with it. My background is in chemical engineering, and my training is mostly heavily technical, heavily theoretical, and heavily actually applied, whether it's in lab or working on an actual instrument itself. And I was fortunate enough that chemical engineering per se, we didn't go over the exact topics that I'm working on in my daily role, but the foundation and building upon that foundation is everyday present. So I guess when I'm looking at this question, it says, did I need it? I would say that's a hard no. and I guess the reason why I'm saying that is I think I was in that position, and most of us were probably in that position a while ago, thinking about, if I want to go to business, I need economics. Oh, if I want to go be a software engineer, I need computer engineering. Yes and no. Because I think coming out of this, I certainly believe that at first. I certainly believe that I needed to work in a lab, I needed to do research, I needed to churn out papers. But all of that probably amounted to, I would say, 5 to 10% in getting me where I am. Most of it is just sort of ingrained in who you are and what you've done. And also there's a little bit of luck as well. That gets thrown into it. And so the second part of the question, so I don't get too off topic, is my background is, I'm fortunate that the background is very technical. I work with chromatography almost exclusively, and that is a broad brush, so to speak, because there's engineering, there's chemistry, there's process control, there's feedback loops. So all of that gets thrown into it. There's mass transfer, there's kinetics. I could go on and on, right? And a lot of it, in going about the degree was really tough. But I would say, is it relevant? Short answer is yes, but not to what you would think. And what I mean by that is it's not relevant in the sense that, hey, flow rate, how does that really work? We didn't exactly go over that. It's like if I had a course in hedgehog mating or hedgehog breeding, I'm not going to be using that specifically. So what I mean is it's a good background and a good foundation, because technical skills allow you to troubleshoot piece by piece, and allows you to understand what people are telling you as well, piece by piece, in a logical way. So in that sense, it's been really relevant. It's been beneficial.
Thank you so much for that answer. We actually just had another panelist join our call, so I want to go ahead and give Lisa Danielson an opportunity to introduce herself and talk about her role a little bit, and then we will go ahead and have the rest of you answer this question as well.
Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. I think that is on now. Yeah, there's nothing like a set of quality time with IT in our new world. So I think I'm okay now. I'm sure everybody has been on that journey with me. Hi, everyone. It's good to meet you all virtually and be here today. Yes, I'm Lisa Danielson. I work at Los Alamos National Laboratory. I have been in the world of government contracting for basically my entire professional life, my entire career. I did a mid-career transition to come to Los Alamos. Before that, I was at NASA Johnson Space Center for the basically for my previous many years. And right now, what I do, my titles are, I have two. I'm the ChemCam Operations Manager. That's one of the instruments. It's on the Mars Curiosity rover right now. And also, I am the focus lead for planetary science within the Center for Space and Earth Science. So I work on a variety of space instrumentation and basically space flight activities that happen here at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And let's see, what else did I want to say? I think that kind of does the big summary of what I do. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. And Jay, if you would go ahead and answer these questions as well.
Yes. So I got, as I mentioned earlier, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and I applied to grad school at UNLV in 1997 as a joke. I'm from Ohio. I wanted to go to Ohio State. And I applied to UNLV as a joke only because I loved their basketball team in the early 90s. And they gave me an amazing offer to come out there and do some research on Yucca Mountain. And I was associated with some national lab work, Los Alamos being one, where where there was some involvement in nuclear weapons testing, and I'm sure Lisa knows all about that. But yeah, I got a free master's degree doing research on Yucca Mountain at UNLV, and I had so much fun with it. It was great. And I think in this respect, I might be an anomaly. Most people that I talk to describe their academic training in the same context as Charlie. It's not really all that relevant now, and I'm not the case. I use every bit of my master's degree every day. The math, the science, designing wells, designing aquifer tests. It's hydrology, and it's a big part of everything I do, and I love it. I think I got the greatest job in the world, and I love doing it. So my degree is actually very relevant to my work, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Fantastic, thank you. And our fourth one to go ahead and answer, Kim, go ahead.
Yes, I have 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree. I did not go to UNLV, so please forgive me. I actually went to a small college in Hawaii named Chaminade University, and I started college back in 1990. So I just actually had my 24th anniversary in the field yesterday. For 24 years. But anyways, when I started in way back in 1990, there was no such thing as a degree in forensic science, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I actually got 2 degrees. I got a degree in criminal justice, and then a second degree, a second bachelor's in biology. So I did that at the same time. I was pre-med, but then I decided I just wanted to kind of help solve crimes instead. And then that took me 5 years, and then I moved all the way clear across the world to Washington, D.C., and I got a master's degree in forensic science. And in order to enter the field of forensic science, you do have to have a bachelor's degree in a chemistry, biology, physical, or forensic science related field. And so both my degree in biology as well as my master's degree are very relevant. Certainly, there's a large amount of on-the-job training that everybody has to learn. I've been in training for years to do the jobs, the different areas that I work in the field of forensic science. And I did start out my first 17 years in DNA. I was a forensic DNA scientist, and I've done all kinds of cases, some of which are pretty well known. And then for the past 6 or 7 years, I've been the laboratory director. So basically, I just send emails all day long and have meetings. So not quite so fun, but I live vicariously through everybody else who I work with. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. As everybody can tell, we have a really interesting and diverse panel with us today. So I'm really excited to go ahead and jump into the next section of our questions. So our questions for this section are about your career trajectory. So some of you touched on this a little bit, but we're going to be talking about your career trajectory. So how long have you been in the field, and what does your career path look like thus far? So we will start with Lisa on this one.
Sure. And I can just touch back to the previous question with this one, which was, so I have been a scientist my whole both academic and professional career, way back in the previous millennium, like some of you, you're my people. But I did a little bit of some randomness, but all of it has been relevant to what I have done throughout my career, which was not always apparent to me. So that's a piece of advice I always give to students, which is everything you do has the potential to be relevant. Even if you don't see it right now, it will be in the future. So don't get discouraged, and don't be angry about a class that doesn't seem like it's going to be anything that you will need right now. So I have an undergraduate degree in physics with some minors in astronomy and astrophysics. And then I went to UNLV and did a fundamental field geology master's. And then I went on to Arizona State to do a PhD in geology. But that all was rolled into planetary science. And so I went from there, and I had a National Academies Fellowship at Johnson Space Center, and then became a full-time scientific staff member, and then got into I'm with Kim on this one. The dark side of management, because I was then manager of basic and applied research in astromaterials research and exploration science. So I think the surprise for me was that I thought I was going to be a technical person and a subject matter expert the whole time. And that's not what happened. And I would have, if I went back in time and told student me, you're going to go into management, you're going to love it, I would have been all, bah. But that is the truth. And so that's an interesting thing that harkens back to classes you don't necessarily know are going to be worthwhile, or things that you learn, because if you're a scientist, you're a lifelong learner. You're always, the field is always changing. You're going to always be changing to keep up with it. So, you're, one of the things that's different is, you have an advanced degree and that teaches you to be a specialist in a field. But if you want to advance into managerial and leadership roles, you have to become more of a generalist, because you're going to go farther and farther away from your immediate technical discipline. So you have to be able to absorb new information about things that you are not an expert in, and be okay with that. So yeah, there we go. That's where I'm at right now. Oh, and then this was like, coming to Los Alamos was a big pivot too. So now I've only been here, I think, like I mentioned, a year, and now I'm learning all kinds of stuff, and I'm all, wow, fire hose. So that's fun though. That's okay.
Wow. I have to say, with a soft science degree over here in liberal arts, and I'm definitely pretty intimidated with all of you. We have a very robust panel. My political science degree does not hold a candle to all of this, but we will go ahead and move to Jay for his answer to this round.
Yeah, so I've been a practicing engineer for 25 years. I started with the research I was doing through UNLV, specifically at the Nevada test site, and working at the Nevada test site was just an amazing experience. Obviously, that's where the nation used to test nuclear weapons, and it was like working in a history book while doing the scientific research. It was fascinating. I learned a ton. And again, that connection was all made through UNLV. And then I decided that after a handful of years that working under the DOE umbrella, that I didn't want to get the label as a government contractor. And I won't say, why that is. I knew that if I wanted to get into actual design and practical experience, I needed to get into consulting. So I made the change to private consulting, which I spent a dozen years or so in Vegas doing. And then the economy collapsed in 2008. And the only industry that really wasn't affected in Nevada by that economic collapse was mining. And that just so happened that as a consultant, that was the only market that I really hadn't connected with as a consultant. So I picked up and moved me and my family from Henderson, Nevada to Round Mountain, Nevada, in the middle of nowhere, to work at a big gold mine. And it was a great experience. And so I'm still involved in mining, obviously. I now live up in northern Nevada. And it's been a great experience, like I said, and it all started with, my experience at UNLV. I'm going to talk more about this, but we don't see many folks in our industry here in Nevada from UNLV, and I'm looking forward to talking about the opportunities in this great industry for students at UNLV regarding the coming questions. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kim, if you would go ahead as well.
I did just kind of touch on a little bit. I have been in this field for 24 years. In my formal life, before I worked for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, I was a Department of Defense government contractor for 11 years. So I'm also familiar with what that looks like. And as I touched on, I entered the field as a student, actually as an unpaid student, a student intern position, working for the Department of Defense. And I just really refused to give up until they gave me a job, and then I stopped bothering them. So that's how I kind of got into the field, working back in Maryland, actually, for the Department of Defense, identifying deceased U.S. military casualties from plane crashes and previous military conflicts. I did that for about 11 years, and then I transitioned to Las Vegas, where I've been here for about 12 years, almost 13 years. And I really enjoy it immensely. I kind of went from working on human remains from decades ago to kind of focusing on mainstream crime, pretty much what a lot of the shows are built on, but our career is not that exciting.
Awesome. That makes me feel a little bit better.
I really wish.
All right, Charlie, and you are up.
Okay, so my career, the first question was how long I've been in this field. I've been in this field since, well, now I'm dating myself. So I've been in this field for going on 7 or 8 years now. And when I say I've been in the field, it's been, relatively been in the world. So when I got out of school, well, I think we could go farther back than that. So my career, I would argue that, your career it's sort of ambiguous. It's arbitrary where you would say it starts. Okay, formally, technically, it's where you get your first job and so on and so forth. But I would say in the very, very, very throes of being in school and seeing where I wanted to go, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to go and apply to Juilliard. I want to go to the New School in New York. Figured it's a pretty rough path. That path being, and I got my first real passion in economics. So I really enjoyed advanced placement economics, macroeconomics, and I thought I wanted to do that. And so I was an undeclared when I was at university, and I was going towards the direction of economics. But at the time, it was about mid 2000s, and we had gone through September 11, we had gone through 2008, 2009, and now you get thinking, all right, the world's not really, I'm growing up now. I got to think about survival. I got to think about looking after myself and those I care about. And so I took a microbiology lab course, and I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to go be a dentist because I like working with my hands. So that was my first passion. I went straight towards that direction. I got into labs, I volunteered, did all that kind of good stuff. And I thought to myself, this is a long projection because I got to go to dental school, there's internships, and that's a whole, I don't even know if my hands will last that long. And so I thought, you know what, to give myself a certain sense of security and a certain sense of competitive advantage, what courses, literally, this is what I did. I went to the course book, and I looked at the majors, and I said, well, what have I already taken? What would be more of an expedited way that would still be engineering related? And lo and behold, I saw the page where I'd crossed out chemical engineering. I said, no way, I'm not doing that. Lo and behold, I resubmitted my application to go into that major. So it's always what you don't want to do. So after that, I got into some internships. I dove into Genentech, a big biopharma company up in Northern California. That's where I'm from. I was there for 28 years or so, and I recently moved down here for this job. And using that background, sort of what I touched on in the last question, using that technical background, really just sort of learning everything I could. I just soaked up every single aspect about biopharma, biotechnology, biopharmaceuticals, therapeutics, working on, we can talk about this later, but a lot of theoretical work, doing papers, presenting. And I would say, my career took maybe 3 different zigzags, I would say. A lot of it had to do with job opportunities, positions that were open, that weren't open. And I would say a lot of it had to do with just trading with punches and taking the opportunities and taking a risk. And so when it didn't pan out, I found another engineering role as a service engineer. I worked on high-end mass specs. These instruments are, list price of $1 million, and Kim, you can attest to that. And eventually, I got a taste. I got a taste for working with people. I got a taste for making people happy, allowing people to be successful. And so, in combination with with my major and my background in school, I combined that with something that I only now I sort of realized I had a love for, which is being more social, communicating. I think when people are in engineering, at least in my class, you have the socially awkward, you have the more introverts. And so looking back, I thought, man, me and my friend, we're pretty, no wonder no one liked us. We talk too much. So I think coming to where I'm now after zigzagging, it's a really weird feeling when it comes for a full circle. You balance that. So thus far, I would say it's been a pretty zigzaggy sort of trajectory. And who knows what will come in the next couple of years. So that would be my response. Zigzag.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's always really interesting to hear people's answers to that question about their career path and sort of how they got to where it is that they are now. Everybody's path is always really different, and hearing people's personal story about how they ended up doing what it is that they are currently doing is always really informative. So we'll go ahead and move to the next section of questions. So Charlie, you touched a little bit on this in your last question, but our questions for this section are, what is something that is part of your role that you never thought you would be doing? And the second one, what has your work looked like in light of COVID-19? And we will go ahead and start with Kim on this.
So something that I never thought that I would be doing is, as Lisa touched on earlier today, I started out as a scientist, hardcore in the lab, leading, and then I eventually started moving up the chain, became a supervisor, and then was called the DNA technical leader, really enjoying the science. But then, after about 12 or 13 roles, transitioning out of that and purely into the management out of the lab. And I think one of the things that I never thought that I would enjoy as much as I do is kind of leading humans. And she touched on earlier those classes that you never know will come in handy. Well, when you're leading humans and supervising up to 90 people, sometimes there's a lot of different situations that come up. So I've really found myself enjoying the human resource element of what I do in leading a lab. And have pondered maybe going back to school for an advanced degree in something that's not scientific to help further my understanding and better myself. And then as far as your second question, what does your work look like in light of COVID-19? One of the things that Jay touched on earlier was the financial situation back in 2008, and one of the industries that was left untouched was mining. And I would also say crime. Crime has not changed. Crime didn't change during that time. Crime hasn't changed right now. And so in my field, there are a lot of forensic laboratories that took off, let their folks stay home, but I didn't really take that approach because we still have crime going on every day in Nevada, and we have certain things that we do that are same day. So we get guns in the same day as the crimes committed, and latent prints and DNA, and we process those items in a very timely manner. So we have been open the entire time. This is the first day I've actually stayed home because I'm doing things around the house, but I'm also working. And so we have been full speed. We have modified our schedules so that I've allowed flexibility for folks to come in and change their schedules where they can work up to 7 days a week on different days, come in as early as 5 a.m., stay as late as 8 p.m. in order for them to practice social distancing more effectively. We've also been working with folks and allowing them to work maybe part-time, stay part-time at home because they have children that they have to look after and help them with school. Other than that, we've really been full speed ahead, as is the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and all of our officers.
Great, thank you so much for that. It's always really interesting to hear, sort of what's happening. And obviously, some industries have been untouched during this time. And it sounds like, unfortunately, crime is still, I don't know whether you can call crime an industry, but it sounds like crime is still sort of hanging in there. But we will go ahead and go over to Jay next.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. So the something that I never imagined I would be doing is government affairs, and this kind of gets into your realm, Lynn, related to political science. So Nevada is the driest state in the nation, and when you're an expert in hydrology, it creates job security, so to speak, I guess. And the other thing about one of the many great things about living in Nevada, I mean, I can't say enough great things about my experience living here for the last 20 years. I love this state. Whether I'm in Reno, Vegas, or Henderson, I just love it everywhere, beyond the big cities especially. But is the access that we have to our elected officials. And that creates an opportunity to make a difference. And if I lived in California, I would probably never get the opportunity to work with a legislator. There's just so many people. It's not the case here. And I do a lot of work in water rights permitting, and that requires an understanding of water policy. And there were some policies, some statutes in Nevada water law that were I also do some consulting on the side for farmers. And I had some farmers that got water rights forfeited unfairly. And I decided that I was going to get involved politically to make a difference. And I did it. And I feel like if I was anywhere else outside of Nevada, I would have never had this opportunity. So I got involved in lobbying, and I lobbied for a certain aspect of water law to get fixed, and it got fixed, and it just fed the fire, right? So now I'm planning on running for the legislature and leveraging my contacts in agriculture and mining to hopefully be elected someday to the state legislature, so I can make a difference specifically related to Nevada water law. So that's something I never thought I would get involved in. It is so much fun. And I think it's just because we're in Nevada and it's easy to make a difference. I love it. As far as what the COVID-19 has done, I almost feel guilty. It hasn't affected me at all. Most of my consulting work is desktop. I don't need to, and if I need to go out to a farm somewhere in rural Nevada, social distancing comes with the territory. I may get close to a couple cows or sheep. It's pretty easy. And mining is one of the only private industries that has managed to escape the mandatory closures, frankly, without mining and that tax revenue created by mining. I'm not sure what we would do in Nevada. We got some tough times coming. And mining is, our mines are operating full production. So fortunately, I'm in a position where I can work from home, but I'm getting tired of it. I can't wait to go back out to the mines. I've never spent this many days in a row in the office. So other than that, it really hasn't affected me.
Well, I never thought that we would use these sessions to kick off a political campaign, but that's pretty cool.
There you go.
I'll be waiting for my bumper sticker to come in the mail.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. Very interesting pivot for your career. So that's pretty interesting. And we will go ahead and go over to Charlie for this question too.
Sure. I never thought I would be doing this, which is in sales. I never thought that at all. I never thought that I would be living in Henderson, Nevada either. Because I've always been, in California, and in California there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of technical jobs. So I never thought that I would be taking a new role and getting out of my comfort zone
moving to somewhere where I have no basis, I have no foundation, besides knowing what the MGM is and what Cirque du Soleil is. That's it. And I would say, although it's unexpected, it's also one of the most enjoyable. I'm having a lot of fun. I wish I moved here sooner because I love being here. And so that in combination, because from what I was talking about before, I did a lot of technical work. I mean, it's talking about, we're talking, okay, you need a Phillips, no, not Phillips, you need a T10 Torx wrench. You have to tighten it a quarter, half a turn away. But if you go three-quarters of a turn, you're fine. You have to tune the instrument this way. Well, now we talk about high mass versus, I mean, all this really technical stuff, right? I never thought that I would be departing that primary role. I still do some of that because when questions do come up about technical aspects, technical specifications, what can I do, what it can't do, that does help me out. But sort of like what the other guys on the panel have been talking about is you slowly, by no mechanism of your own, sometimes you start distancing yourself in terms of being a manager. You have to learn I'm still learning how to let go of certain technical service calls because I feel like, hey, I could probably go into fix it right now, but that's not my role, and it would have caused confusion for sure. And so definitely what I'm doing right now is nothing that I would have ever expected. I thought I was going to be just a stay-at-home dad or something from a long time ago. So in terms of COVID-19, we have a lot of work with the cannabis testing labs and a lot of the nutraceutical labs around here, and also military installations. And our work in terms of supporting those companies hasn't changed because they're still up and running, and in some cases in overdrive. In terms of pharmaceuticals, environmental, and some of these other smaller companies, a lot of them have gone under. For some of them, when I'm reaching out, it's radio silence, and so you try to see what's happening, try to see what the news is, and you try to reach out to some of the people you know. And a lot of it's pretty sad news. I mean, I touched base with one of our accounts, and they've had family members pass away from the illness, and so it hits you right there, indirectly. Only two people away, really. So, anything else in terms of what I never thought I would be doing? I never thought I would be a manager. In some, I'm not technically not a lab manager, lab director like Kim is, or at Los Alamos, or Jay. I'm sure you're in charge of a large unit, but it's certainly a breath of fresh air when you have you can put your own twist on on your vision. You can really set up with your own vision, because so much of the time when you're growing up and you're looking for a career and you think, I'm going to be working on someone's behalf or on the behalf of another organization, but it's really a nice breath of fresh air that I can combine the technical aspects of what I've learned to try and help people out in my own way, because you always see something that you can improve when you're working with other people. So I think was that 3 or 4 items? Yeah, those are some of the things that I never expected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to let Lisa finish us out on this question.
Sure thing. So a lot of what is a bit of a surprise, and this is true throughout the time I've been a contractor, is some of the administrative aspects. There's really no preparation. And I talk to the graduate college about this sometimes, about, what would be really great, and engineering and colleagues, you can back me up on this. It would be great if people could graduate with a certificate in project management, because yeah, that's right. Everybody's like, yeah, right. Because that is something you had to learn on the job. I've said, oh, please do this, because that is the thing you are going to use forever and forever. And the structure of that goes across industry. So I wish that, I mean, that was a thing that would be good. I never thought that there are also things you'll find in your career, right, that you have a hidden talent for that you kind of wish you didn't in some ways. Like, don't make this public knowledge, but I can write the heck out of a subcontract. And yeah, right. Don't y'all get any ideas? But I didn't know I didn't know that was a thing that I would be really good at. And so so yeah, I'm trying not to make that particular thing common knowledge, but I think it's kind of out of the bag already now that I'm here at the lab. Work in light of COVID-19. It has been a really dramatic transition here. I mean, I am super lucky. Like in similar ways to Jay, I live in this beautiful rural area in New Mexico, so the social distancing part isn't difficult. But what was difficult is that the lab is basically in kind of mostly a shutdown mode. We're right now staffing at about the 8 to 12% on-site rate because of some critical operations. But what that means in terms of numbers is that the lab employs almost 13,000 people, and now they had to transition, you do the math, right? You had to transition 10,000 people to working at home almost overnight. And that capacity was really tough. Now, there are other ancillary things that the national labs are playing right now a really critical role in working on this. You can go out there, you can find articles. Los Alamos has high performance computing that is doing modeling. We have bioscientists who are working on other aspects of understanding and developing mitigation for the virus. So what that means for the rest of us is that now we've transitioned into a mode where we are all kind of, in some ways, we're trying to find work that we can continue to do at home. I'm actually just writing proposals like crazy. I actually have twice the work now that I did when I was going into the office, strangely enough. But we're also kind of just trying to be somewhat reactionary in terms of being able to support this critical work that will help the entire world, basically, to get past, to do something to potentially develop a vaccine or talk about what kinds of social actions we want to take to help preserve safety in human life.
Wow, definitely not an intimidating answer at all. But we'll go ahead and move to the next section of our questions. This section is going to be about professional development. So I would invite you guys you can tackle either of these questions or sort of make a combined one. But we're interested in finding out some effective strategies for seeking a position in this field. And then if you have any recommendations on trade journals, magazines, or professional associations that would be helpful for those in your field or potentially those going into this field. And we will start with Jay this time.
Okay, so in terms of effective strategies for seeking a position in this field, this kind of comes back to UNLV and for any faculty or staff that may be listening. When I was at UNLV in the late 90s, early 2000s, cooperative education wasn't really a thing yet, I don't believe, and it may be now, I don't know. But I was in a cooperative education program when I got my undergrad, and I graduated with my undergrad with 2 years of experience, and that's what got me interested in groundwater hydrology, and it was huge. It really provides a leg up on all other graduates who weren't in the cooperative education program, and it requires a big commitment from the university, obviously, to work with you. It's cooperative, right? You're working with private industry, public entities, and it's an amazing opportunity for students to come out with real world experience, and that was huge. The other thing is for mining, I said this earlier, mining, Vegas, you don't hear much about mining in Southern Nevada, but a lot of people don't realize there are so many indirect support industries for mining, from the big equipment operators to a huge part of our supply chain is influenced by Southern Nevada. All of our lime for our heap leaches comes from another mine in Southern Nevada, just north of Vegas. A lot of people don't realize that, but for students coming out, there's a great opportunity. All mines rely heavily on interns, and for people who are willing to get outside of the big city and get into rural Nevada and experience all there is to experience outside of Vegas and Reno, it's a great opportunity. In mining, the last time I checked, it was the highest paying industry in Nevada. Average salaries are now over 6 figures. That's average. That's way ahead of gaming. And gaming is obviously our tax base, but mining, if you're willing to make that sacrifice and potentially live outside of the big city, it's very rewarding. So that would be my recommendation along those lines. As far as trade associations, journals, so for anyone involved in engineering and especially geosciences who might be listening or watching, the Nevada Water Resources Association is a great, it's a nonprofit. Their mission, it's Nevada-based. Their mission is exclusively to provide opportunities for professionals to network and students to learn. And I say we because I used to be the president, but it's a great opportunity for students to interact with industry professionals. And there's events, educational workshops all over Nevada year round. So for people in geosciences, and it doesn't have to be hydrologists, there's a lot of engineers, biologists, geologists, a lot of professionals in those fields participate in that. And then if you want to know what's going on with water and policy in Nevada, I would highly recommend the Nevada Independent. And they have, in my opinion, the best journalist in the state of Nevada. His name is Daniel Rothberg. He's writing about all natural resource issues, big issues in Nevada, and he does a phenomenal job, an independent perspective. If you want to know what's going on with big water projects, for example, 2 weeks ago, the Southern Nevada Water Authority pulled their big pipeline project to import water down to Vegas. They've been working on that for over 30 years and invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and they pulled it. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal for the whole state. And that is a great place to learn about what's happening with big issues like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that professional advice. I mean, I think it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities to learn more about mining and, sort of what's going on in the industry. So definitely something I had not considered before. But we will go ahead and move over to Charlie for his answer too.
Sure. Effective strategies. So I think my response to this is sort of, it kind of answers both. Most effective that I would say is, when you're, I would say in any person's lifetime, you're always building, you're always learning, and we're learners. Human beings are learners, right? You always pick up something, monkey see, monkey do, or it could be something you're reading. The most effective strategy that's been beneficial to me is when I first started, when I was in an exploratory phase, because at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do before I did chemical engineering. I took geology. I loved geology. I love learning about the Grand Canyon. I love learning about the Colorado Plateau. I love learning about all that. Went to planets. So it was that initial. I love psychology. The whole indirect. When you push a button and the person gets run over by a train versus you telling someone else to push the button. That's all fascinating to me. To learning about. I watch shows like Forged in Fire or Top Shot. People who have skills like bow and arrows or butchery, carving, and all these random nuances that, at least in my role, come into play in some ways. Because when you're talking to someone, and this is more of a sales thing, when you're talking to someone, you kind of need to
get that conversation going, you might need to pull one or two items out of your memory bank. And so I would say the most effective strategy I would say don't feel the need to say, you know, I'm a chemistry major. That's it. I'm only taking chemistry courses. At that time, that's the only time you're really going to have a dedicated moment, brief stint in your life to really explore and do whatever. Because nowadays I'm sure all these guys can attest, is, we keep, most of us keep working even after 5 o'clock, after 6 o'clock. We're maybe when we go to bed, we're still thinking about, man, that person was quite upset, or how am I going to tackle tomorrow? Oh God, I am not looking forward to this conversation. Or so, a lot of time that you would have that's free to read a book or read a magazine. That's when you're in this phase of your life. That's, do it, go for it, because it may come in handy one day. I recently watched this Conan O'Brien. He was a special guest at, I believe it was Cambridge, or no, he's at Oxford, and he was talking about taking a bunch of courses, and one of the courses was city architecture and infrastructure in Cairo. Obviously, that's never ever come up in an interview with a celebrity, but it's that mentality that you have to just keep exploring. And a more tangible concept here is stick to your lab professor, your professor, your lab PI, whichever professional that you encounter first, because that's the beginning of your network. And that doesn't mean that you have to stick with them, but that means your network's branched off into certain and different ways. Because a lot of people, they ask me, how do I get started with research? How do I get into a position like that? It's so competitive. The one biggest weapon that I would say you have is communication. And a lot of people, when I was choosing a major, they kind of look down on communication, but I think that's one of the most important things in my role. When you can communicate what you want, when you can communicate your idea, you'll find yourself getting a job or getting into a career much more easily. Recommended trade journals. I would say, out of them all, I would say I don't have a particular one in mind. I would say you can look up ACS. You can look up SFC, Green Chemistry SFC. You can look up Enabling Technologies Consortium, ETC, which Shimadzu has worked with, my company has worked with. The ETC specifically is a group of industries, companies. So we're looking at Amgen, Pfizer, BMS, Genentech, all these big companies, GSK. They come and they look for a vendor. They look for a company like Shimadzu, Agilent, Thermo, Waters, and they say, hey, we want to work with you to build the perfect instrument. And so Shimadzu was chosen for preparative SFC, which is supercritical fluid chromatography, and they are coming out with new, actual, tangible ideas. So that's a pretty good place to start for the ETC. But I would say the most effective that I've seen, besides magazines and doing all that, is don't take who you're working for granted. A lot of those PIs and principal investigators, they'll help you out because it's a pretty tight knit community, and especially from what I've learned being in Southern Nevada, it is a very tight knit community, and people help each other out. So I would say keep that concept in mind. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you for that really solid professional advice. And so we will move to Kim next. You are muted, Kim. Oh, you're having a problem with your mic. Okay, we will go ahead and move to Lisa.
Okay, here we go.
Difficulties during this time, so we'll go to Lisa.
Okay, I got my mic back and my screen back. It had a special moment there for a second. So I will build on what Jay said in terms of science and technical fields, science and engineering. And I'll put my hiring manager hat on from looking at more than hundreds and hundreds of resumes, talking to over 1,000 students, and what were the things that I and my organization, both past and present, would be looking for, and what are we seeing in candidates that are applying for jobs, especially at the early career level, which I think is basically our target here. So let me take the second question first, which is trade journals, magazines. You know, that is not as critical if you're in science, a science and technical field. You already have done you are already involved in doing research, or just in your academic career, you'll figure out what are the key things, what you're going to read and keep up with. Professional associations, and Jay mentioned this too, which is it doesn't matter which ones you join, just join the ones that look really interesting to you, because that is going to be very field dependent. So there are probably a half dozen professional associations that I have been part of during my career or wanted to join, but do your homework and see which ones are in general of interest to you. Now, the key thing, and this goes back to the first questions about seeking a position, what I have been seeing in applicants is at least one internship, usually 2 now is the standard. So, and I think, you know, if you're an engineer, that's called a co-op, but look for at least 1, if not 2. And most importantly, try to find opportunities that are outside of your university, because that is going to help you build that professional network. And those are the people that are going to help you in your next career move. Because what a lot of the times an internship is it is kind of a long-term job interview. It's a chance for you to check out the place that you're interning to see if this is where you want to be. But it's also a chance for people that can have a significant influence on getting you that next step, that full-time position, to find out if that's something that they want to do. And so that's summer opportunities. A lot of places now are doing more things in the semester. And if there are graduate students paying attention, this is especially true for you. I know that sometimes graduate students are nervous about extending their degree time, but at the same time, that's critical. If I'm looking at an applicant that has done an internship at a NASA center or another national lab, I'm going to pay much more attention to that than somebody that just has their degree, because there's going to be things that I won't have to teach them because they already know what that system is like. And it just shows that they can work in a variety of different environments and cultures. So key things are to go and find that internship. And maybe it's not always just an internship. There are other things you can do too that are short courses. Going to professional meetings is a big one. Now, I'm saying all this stuff, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like in our new world. I mean, we're still doing remote work for students, and we're still trying to do short courses. And I know there's some online, I'm seeing a lot of things online with the go look at the Lunar and Planetary Institute and the, let's see, and there's some NASA town halls too, especially related to the NASA Decadal Survey that's early career oriented. And there are opportunities for students to get involved, and you can do that all remotely. And there are groups too that you want to join. Like go into I'm telling you to go into social media. It's like, go in there and find them, because there are now early career groups that are putting together virtual career panels and all these things. But going to meetings, giving presentations, talking to other professionals, and doing internships and short courses and anything else you can find away from your university to broaden your field of contacts is critical.
For sure. I think you touch on a really important point in there. You know, what does professional development look like in our new world, you know, without the ability to have in-person conferences and trade shows and all of that sort of stuff. So it's going to be really interesting to see what sort of happens as a result of all of this.
And could I just make a quick point too, Lynn?
Go ahead.
Because you asked, because you fired a neuron, which is, and this is hard for students, I know, from talking to a lot of them, because it's really hard to be the one that takes the initiative to make that contact. But I think it means that for students and early career people, it is really more, the onus is on you to go and find people. A lot of us, believe it or not, a lot of us are really happy to help you with your network and direct you into a productive place, even if we can't personally help you. So be that person that makes that contact. I could actually do a whole 20-minute talk on how to engage someone to help you, because sometimes people don't do a great job of it. But anyway, just keep that in mind. It's going to be hard, but I think that you're going to need to do it.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely something we always recommend, for students, and it's hard. So I definitely appreciate your echoing the message we tell students, that sometimes you have to be the first one to make that step. But I think Kim rejoined us. Kim, did you want to go ahead and answer this question?
Sure. So for the field of forensic sciences, you have to have a degree. You have to have a bachelor's degree in a physical, a natural, a chemistry, or excuse me, not a natural, a physical, biology, chemistry, or forensic related field. And so that's the platform. But as Lisa and other folks touched on, networking is very important. I do receive emails occasionally from students, and I always answer them. We do have jobs posted online. If you go to www.lvmpd.com, as in Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.com, you can go to the employment section, and then there's a space where you can do a job interest card. So you can kind of sift through all the different positions that are available on the department. We're forensic related positions, but we also have crime scene. And then as far as all the positions, you can then scroll through all the job requirements and then assess what educational requirements are needed, because there's different levels of education for different jobs or different specifications that are needed. And then it'll kind of also shoot you an email when any of those positions open. As far as recommended trade journals, there is one resource that I will give out. It's the American Academy of Forensic Science. It's aafs.org. And there is a tremendous wealth of information. They actually can allow students to join for pretty reasonable rates. We also have national meetings. There was a meeting this year that was held in Anaheim, California in February, right before COVID-19 hit. There's a lot of job sharing and technical discussions and networking capabilities. And so just as other folks have touched on, I really do encourage that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Those are really solid professional recommendations from all of you. So we're going to move into our last section of questions. I do know we're running a little long on time, so I appreciate everybody's patience. But our final section is all about some advice. So we have some thought prompts on there. So you can choose one of these if you'd like, or you can provide your own, sort of closing tidbit of advice. But if you choose one of these, the questions are something that you wish you would have known before going into this field or position, a mistake you have made in your career and what you learned from it, and the ever popular, if you could do it all over again, would you choose this path still? So you can choose to tackle one of those or provide your own advice, and we will start with Lisa.
Okay, let's see. Which order do I want to go? Easy one. If you could do it all over again, would you? Yeah, science is awesome. I wouldn't change, yeah, I would definitely do it. Science is great. Things that I wish I would have known. I don't know, because I really don't do regrets. So I'm not really sure there's anything that is something that I didn't know that. But at the time that the advice about internships, it was less relevant at the time back in the previous millennium when I was a student. So everything is going to change, right? I mean, we're in this time of extreme change. So who knows what things are going to look like in 5 years, even in 1 year, even tomorrow. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to give 2 pieces of advice, and one of them is about the middle question about a mistake that you made in your career. But before I get to that one, because this will be the good takeaway, is something that's a little bit related to the previous slide about some career advice, and especially for people in science and technical fields. And I know that there are a lot of folks that are in degrees, and this really only applies to the undergraduates who are paying attention to this. Graduate students are kind of beyond this right now. But they're often in physical sciences, there's a track that is kind of like what I refer to as science light. And instead of a Bachelor of Science, for example, it'll be like a Bachelor of Arts, and you won't have to take as much math. And oh my God, I got to tell y'all, if y'all can please right now, if you want to own your profession, get computing down, because dealing with large data sets and how to manipulate those is something that everybody needs, and everybody has a value for that. So, but if you're on that track where you were doing less math and science, I will say this in my previous place and here at the lab, you're not competitive. You can't, because we have so many people, we literally have 100 applicants for every single position. And we are going to pick, the 3 to 5 best ones. And there's no way that with that degree of a less technical matter that you're going to be competitive with these other folks. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the mistake thing, here's the, what do you mean one mistake? Here's the thing, in your career, you're going to make so many mistakes, you are going to lose track. As I like to tell everybody, the first time I do something is probably garbage. And that's okay, because I'm going to learn from it, and then it's going to get better until it's really good. So what I tell people is, don't worry about, well, you're going to worry. You're going to feel how you feel. It's okay. You're going to make a ton of mistakes in your career. Now, hopefully you will make mistakes in a way that won't be catastrophic. You'll do what we in space industry call fail safe, right? You'll have something that fails, but it's low consequence. The most important thing I can tell you about all the mistakes you're going to make in your career is learn how to value and accept feedback, especially negative feedback. Because if you can't take that in, if you can't understand and own, especially own, oh, the decisions that I made, or the choices, or this action that I did was not great. If you can't do that, you will not grow as a person. You cannot grow professionally. And you're going to have a really hard time, no matter what career you're in, working with your peers and your leadership. So make sure that you know how to take feedback. Now that's a whole other skill set. If you want some advice on how to accept and learn from feedback, go talk to somebody, go talk to a mentor, any kind of professional about how to do that, because it's not easy and it never feels good. But I see that as one of the most challenging, one of the most career limiting features for people, and how, honestly, having been a manager, how they get into real trouble and or be released from their current role is by not understanding, not seeing, and not taking any feedback, both positive and negative, but especially when you get into that part of, oh, you've made a mistake and you need to hear this tough thing and learn from it.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of really, really good touch points, I think, in there. And you looking for a job in career services? Because we could use some coaching like that. But I'm going to pivot it over to Charlie to give us a little bit of his closing thoughts as well.
Goodness, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, even right now, I have a lot of thoughts in my mind, because I kind of prepped some stuff beforehand, but now it's, I would say it's funny because we're all panelists up here. Some of the, I know there's Giovanni on there, but this might get broadcast elsewhere. But it's almost like we're professionals. We've been in our fields. We have the grasp. I would say something that I wish I would have known is, when you look at someone successful, who appears to be successful, you think, man, that guy has it all. I want to get to that point, because I think that'll make me happy. I think what I want to say is there will be a time, at least for me personally, where I'd stop and think, what do I really want to do? Because there's some things I want to do. I wanted to change my career at one point, and 70% of it was my decision, but 30% of it was, it's because it's what the industry is doing, and it make me more competitive, and it's a solid fail-safe. So I would say something I wish I would have known is you never know what's going to happen. And I'm someone who's I always think the world's ending. So I just prep and do whatever I can just to be ready for whatever does happen. So I would say that's what I would have known. The next thing is more tangible. I wish I would have known that tech is going to be embraced so dramatically as it is now. So nowadays, when you look at the stock market indexes right now, you look at the you look at Dow Jones, you look at S&P, and they're falling, and you see the Nasdaq, which is completely tech heavy, and it just keeps on chugging along. That's something that I really would have wished I kept doing, and that leads to my next point is once the mistake I made in my career, because I consider everything I do as part of my career. I wish I stuck with computing. I wish I stuck with more computer engineering, more software engineering, because it really opens up a lot of doors. It opens up the ability to work and be more efficient with your own workflow, with a workflow that you've been given at work. It opens up doors for you to improve any processes that are in your workplace. So not necessarily a mistake, but it's something that I wish I could have capitalized more on. And one mistake. I would say when I was vying for a full-time position, and most people, I'm not too certain about the area here, but most people, they are contractors in the pharmaceutical industry or biopharmaceuticals, and that's becoming more of a thing. One is for cost-cutting reasons, and it's just efficient for them to do it that way. The one thing that I made a mistake on was, and this is going to sound very not Disney, but it's going to sound a little negative. One mistake I would say is being negative, in any sense of the word, and letting things get to you, and just being negative about where you are, because that you can start digging a real deep hole. And so when you talk to an advisor and say, well, they're trying to help you out, you start digging a deeper hole. You start digging another hole, actually, and you just block out any real ways of getting out. So the one mistake I had was I was at Genentech, I was vying for a role, and I just couldn't get one. Every time they opened something up, they would freeze a role. And the mistake I think I made was giving that a chance for too long of a time. Thankfully, it worked out the way it did work out. But at the time, I was still holding on to a glimmer of hope after seeing 5 positions get frozen and passed on to other people. So I think probably after the second one, I probably should have gotten the hint. So I would say the mistake I made was not being opportunistic a little bit sooner, I would say. And if I could do it all over again, yes, I would do this path, but I would probably have a background in software engineering. I would say I would still do sales in a way, and I would love to run an aspect of the business. That's sort of where I'm headed. That's where I see myself in the skills I'm picking up. That's where I'm headed. And I think I did 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And we will pivot to Kim and then finish out with Jay.
Okay, so I did just want to make a recommendation that I forgot to mention earlier. One of the things that forensic scientists have to do is testify in court all the time. So one of the things that I would encourage students to focus on if they have the ability is their public speaking skills as well as their writing skills. I can't tell you in the field of science how critical that is for success, whether you're writing scientific reports, you're writing applications, or you're writing, bids, or you're writing grants. I have about 85, 90 people, and I can pick off the top of my head the select few that are very, very good at writing and speaking, unfortunately. So I will say that I do interview about 100 folks a year, and the ones that speak very well, and we also put them through a writing exam, are the ones that excel. So that is definitely something that you want to focus on. Even though you may be a science major or engineering, English writing is very important. Probably one of the mistakes that I've made is just being too impatient and taking things personally. As Lisa indicated earlier, it's very important to be able to accept criticism, feedback. It's not to hurt you, it's to help you improve. And so being able to depersonalize some of that and not take it personally and actually just digest it and grow from it and apply it. I will also say that those people are the most successful. People that listen to what you're trying to say instead of being combative. And so that could be a maturity thing, but as you move through life, but if you can get a handle on that from the get-go, it will be very beneficial. And if I could do this over again, would I? You know, it's weird because I've kind of always been in the right place at the right time. It's like a bizarre thing of my life. And I do work hard, and I'm always, you know, one step ahead and trying to diversify my skill set. And so I'm very needed for a lot of different things. I don't really think I change anything. I think everything has gone well. I mean, it's not always been easy. There's have been very challenging times, but in the end, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger.
Awesome. Really solid advice. And then Jay, can you go ahead and bring us home some final
Sure. You bet. I'm going to take a different track here, but this is really easy. So number one, big mistake that others could learn from, and you really don't associate this with people working in the science and technology fields or industries, but don't be too open about your politics, especially if you're working on anything related to climate. It shouldn't matter. Keep your politics to yourself, because to some people it matters, and it could have an effect on you. So don't make the same mistake I did. Number two, something I wish I would have known is the applicability of law and water policy. And I'll conclude by saying this. So if there's anybody wanting to have a career in water hydrology and you want to get into policy, which is a lot of fun, I would highly suggest, while you're able to just transition right over to the Sam Boyd School of Law and get a law degree, because if you're an engineer and a lawyer, you can do whatever you want. So I'll end with that.
Fantastic. That is all really solid advice. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wrap us up. Thank you so much to our panelists today. The amount of expertise and passion from all of you is really exciting to hear. We always like to hear from folks that love their jobs, and it's very obvious that all of you do. So I super appreciate all of you taking the time. I went ahead and put up the information up there for our career services office. So if folks are interested in learning more about our team or getting involved with us, they're more than welcome to do so. But again, I definitely want to go ahead and thank our panelists so much for participating with us today. We really appreciate your expertise and your willingness to join us. So thank you so much.